I'm Thomas Blair.
And I am Mark Hallish.
And today we are going to give you patch notes from the future. Yes, we are going to read the 5.4 patch notes because those are way more exciting than the fixes we've been doing in 5.3 because 5.3 is dead to us, according to Mark, right? And you can go ahead and explain why 5.3 is dead to us.
Well, because we've done a ton of stuff basically between 5.3 and 5.4.
Yeah, so why don't we explain the flow process first so they know what we're talking about. So what's up on test right now is 5.3.
Right.
What's up on live is 5.2.10 or 5.2.11, which we haven't touched in weeks, months even maybe. So what's going to happen is 5.3 is going to go from test to live, and everyone's going to have access to it at that point. And then what we've been building in our development branch is going to go up to test, and it may or may not be unlocked right away for you guys as we kind of let it settle on the server. But that's our new flow going forward, is we're working in develop. When the thing in test goes to our live branch, the things that we've been working on in develop go up to the test branch, and then we start testing those in preparation for that one to go forward into live. And then that is the life cycle of the game from here on out. Right. So we're going to talk to you about stuff that we've been brewing in 5.4 in the dev branch that is making its way to test soonish.
Yes.
Soonish.
So
5.4 hype.
All right, 5.4 hype.
All right, you want to start with the beginning?
I will start at the beginning. So new for 5.4, new playable class, Assassin, is now available.
The Assassin class is now playable.
Now playable Male Human Ranger, now available.
Okay.
For the first time ever.
I hate that all of the work that went into the Assassin gets boiled down to a single line.
Yeah. Well, you guys will, basically be able to play it as soon as it's 5.4 is there, right? I mean,
yeah,
it's a whole class, right? I mean, we can spend probably a whole hour talking about it if we wanted to.
Probably. It's just weeks of effort gets boiled into one patch line.
Just a single line.
You're just like, hey, all of this work that all the animators, the effects, the sound guys, design, and you're just like, it's one patch. If we were graded by weight, that one would feel very light.
That would be a very heavy one. Many an hour spent by many a person on.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to it. The Assassin is cool. I enjoy stunning people and getting behind them and backstabbing them to death. The new toxin stuff is really cool.
It's totally awesome.
The Assassin has a toxin slot even, so they can load that thing out. And that is we did away with the passive system. I don't think we've mentioned that. No, but originally the toxins were a passive that you loaded out. But then we got the ability to do a bunch of stuff with powers when you equip an object.
Right.
So we converted them over to objects, and those objects will, as soon as I get a tech request finished, they will slowly decay over time as you attack with a toxin.
Right.
So
you'll equip your toxin. It'll be poison, disease, or earth-based or nature-based.
Nature. And you guys have seen what they do in a previous write-up. The effects and all of the stuff is coming.
Right, that hasn't changed.
Yeah, they'll see that video though, because we haven't done a video on the
Assassin. That's right. Yeah, and of course it looks great. Right?
Yeah, I really like the effects. Awesome. The effects turned out really good. I'm really looking forward to you guys getting your hands on it. Onward with more patch notes.
That's right. Let's say new changes to crafting have been added. Basic recipes can be created by pressing the J button. Recipes that are not basic will require a crafting station in order to craft.
That's correct. So we now have actually 3 levels of recipe. We've got the basic recipes, we've got intermediate recipes, and we have advanced recipes. Basics can be crafted anywhere. You've gotten used to pressing J and it just opens that up. Intermediates will be from crafting stations that are found in the beachheads. And then the advanced will be from crafting stations that you find out in the forts and keeps. You can also craft intermediates there. Intermediates are granted to everybody. Basics are granted to everybody. Advanced, you need to train into that skill tree. So you need blacksmithing basics to see the blacksmithing recipes. Leatherworking basics to see the leatherworking recipes. So...
then we have placeable crafting stations for EK placement have been created and added, so it means you'll be able to have crafting stations in your Eternal Kingdoms.
Yep, and those are the advanced ones, not the intermediate ones.
The equipment and mitigation tab in the inventory player panel has been updated. A lot better. UI adjustments to the crafting windows are currently in progress. Oh yes, here's a big one. Input buffering.
Okay. This is the reason 5-3 is dead to us.
Yes, so well, for me personally.
For you personally.
For me personally. So with input buffering, you can anticipate your next attack and hit the button to activate your next ability a split second before the previous ability has ended.
Okay.
So this allows you to chain smoothly from ability to ability without having to spam the button to prevent DPS loss. And so in most cases, the input for the next ability will be accepted after the previous ability has hit. So that means when you see the fly text or whatever, you can hit the button at that point, and the next ability will activate. Right. So I mean, input buffering is basically it's like the action game secret sauce. Right. I mean, it's pretty much it's a pretty major feel improvement. Because you'll basically be able to have your attacks flow seamlessly from one to another without having to spam the button to know that to get your attack to go off.
Sure.
Right. So it lets you play with a lot more precision and basically intention. Right. So you can basically just go button 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 to flow from attack to attack without having to to make sure you don't get dropped inputs or lose DPS or whatever. So anyways, big pretty awesome change.
It's not buffering like you would see in the 80s with the downloading a web thing and buffering.
No,
buffering.
It is buffering.
Yes,
buffering. It is buffering as in letting you hit the button a split second before the previous ability has ended, so things will just flow nicely.
Things will just flow nicely.
Then we got input remapping for key bindings has been added.
So that's been a long-standing one that is getting merged in today, I believe, in fact. So you should be, for reals, able to remap pretty much everything to whatever we want to let you remap it to.
So that's cool. That's very good. So the reason we changed all game effect hit locations to none is we did a little bit of armor revamping again, because you guys indicated you weren't really happy with the last iteration of armor. So what we have done basically is we've made armor a progression. We made it a real progression where leather defensively is the lowest end and plate defensively is the highest end. And
they have the same mitigation types.
Same mitigation types. So across the board, basically, it's it's not that basically leather. The range of protections for leather are across the board as opposed to leather's only elemental or whatever.
Okay.
And plate same way, right? So I mean, it's cross board protection rather than plate being good against this thing, this type, and not good against that other type. Everything's good against all types, basically.
Okay.
So there's that. And so since it is a oh, that's right. So, and we put the damage bonuses back onto leather,
right?
And a slightly smaller but still significant damage bonus on mail.
Yes.
Right. So again,
plate has none.
Plate has none. Right. So it is again, if you want to be a highly defensive dude, you're wearing plate.
Well, what's the counterbalance stat to that?
You mean I don't know. Answer
health.
Health. Oh, health. Sure.
Right.
I just haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
Right? So you're jumping the gun here. So leather gets a damage bonus, right? Mail gets a damage bonus. Who gets access to what hasn't changed, right? So right now, Knight and Templar, right? They're gonna get the ones that have access to plate. Assassin.
Well, so they also get the ones lower to it as well. Right?
Yes, because it is a progression, right? So plate person like Knight and Templar will have access to wear mail or leather out of the box.
As well as plate.
As well as plate.
They get all three.
Right. Myrmidon, Champion, and Ranger Assassin are the ones that currently are, we say are chain. They're still going to be the chain.
Chain plus leather.
The chain, right? So they got chain plus leather. If they want to wear plate, they will have to use get a minor discipline that gives them access to plate.
Okay.
Right.
Let's talk about those minors, though.
Right. Let us do that. So, because it's a progression, for example, the leather wearers, if they want access to mail, they'll have to equip a mail minor discipline. If they want access to plate as well, they'll also have to equip a plate minor discipline. So each one has the previous one as a requirement, a prerequisite for it. So
you can't equip the plate minor unless you already have mail, access to mail, or the mail discipline in there.
Mm-hmm. So that's that. What do we have here? I think that's pretty much it, right?
Well,
that's right. There's the chest thing. Why don't you go ahead and talk about that?
Okay, so we used to have the randomized hit locations hitting anywhere on the body, which in this system would mean that you would have to pretty much wear an identical set, which we didn't want to do. So what we've done is we've taken that randomization out, and the hit location it will hit the chest, but it really doesn't have to hit anywhere. The only piece of armor that actually has mitigation value on it is the chest. Boots, gloves, and helmet, instead of having mitigation values, now just have health values if they are scale or plate. Yes? The leather has 0. Yeah, the leather has 0.
Oh, I thought there was...
I thought I put it at 0 on the leather.
Okay. I don't remember.
Still tweaking.
So,
yeah, we're still tweaking.
Still working on it. So.
But the thing is here, which means that if you want to wear damage gloves and damage and health boots, you can do that because one would be scale, one would be leather, and you wanted to wear a plate chest, you're not going to get penalized for that because the armor is still just going to come from the chest value. The boots and the gloves are glorified stat sticks at this point. Right, but you have to make a trade-off between health and or damage based on those stats. I think that's it. Oh, I also updated all the crafting recipes. So leather was extremely cheap to make versus the other two. We went through and made the armor crafting much more match weapon crafting, where that final combine stage is like a sword's final combine is a hilt and a blade, and the blade has a bunch of stuff in it, and the hilt has a bunch of stuff in it. Armor crafting is much more like that now, in that you combine sheets or plates or whatever at the end stage, and those have pieces that go into it. I think with leather, it's leather squares. So there isn't any, at the final combine, there isn't a lot of raw resources. All the raw resources are in the previous stages, which, yes, that all works now. So I got that all working over the weekend. So, armor sets are definitely much more matching what weapon crafting is now, which is where we wanted it to. Oh, so also going in with this is the armor crafting will be done by, you need blacksmithing basics or you need leatherworking basics to actually craft it, because up until that point they will be wearing the basic armor set right out of the box, which everybody can make, but you'll need to find a crafter to make the other two for you, or be a crafter yourself. That's and they need to be made at the advanced stations. Yes, the game is starting to arrive, right? It's no longer just kind of go to the weapon racks and grab the thing and go. It is actually, we're putting in all of the pieces to make the game actually work. Okay.
Let's see.
Next.
Okay, crafting recipe updates. New recipes for placeable crafting tables have been added to the basic crafting list, which kind of mentioned above.
Yep.
New intermediate recipes and components like metal billet and reinforced plank have been added to the crafting table list.
Yes.
Balanced, let's see, and balanced recipes, obviously.
So those recipes, people who didn't see the forums may not know this. The intermediate is our first step in teaching people who might be interested in crafting about the deeper subcomponent crafting system. Right, basic stuff just takes raw resources. The intermediate recipes only take one subcomponent, like in this case, the weapons take metal billets instead of metal bars. Metal billets have no stats such that the metal bars do, so you're not going to be putting attack power into these intermediate weapons, but it will show people this is what our crafting is like, and it might make more people interested in pursuing that, or it'd be like, nope, I'm out. I'll let a crafter make it because I'm not interested in doing this, which is great because we won't have the problems that we've had currently, which is everybody has access to everything and not everybody really wants to play the crafting game. Right? So we're making the step towards the game, and people will actually start doing what they enjoy.
So I don't know if are we still going with this?
So we're going to have to talk about it. Right now, the assassin toxins are under alchemy. We probably need to make those easier to make. Unfortunately, animal bone is linked, ground animal bone is linked to alchemy. So we're going to have to, it's just we don't have plants yet. That's the challenge.
Yeah.
Right, is we don't have plants in the game, so it is kind of challenging. But the toxins are intended to be crafted. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't want to change that. That is a thing for... Right.
So we might have to have a stopgap of some sort to basically give you access to that recipe without requiring you to master alchemy or whatever.
Harvesting. Collapsed animal harvesting down to 3 main types: carnivore, herbivore, and omnivore. So I made a major effort to go in and overhaul the animal harvesting, because as we're starting to get more NPC animals, they don't fit in with an existing hide type. And basically, we didn't want to limit the art team to only providing us 5 animal types and then saying they're done.
Yeah.
Right? So, because we had bear, boar, elk,
Ox.
auroch, and cat as the hide types. And then the very second animal they gave us is wolf. So you can see that all of a sudden it would create this, oh great, now we have to go make a bunch of new hide types, and to support that, we need to make a bunch of new recipe types. And it was just like, let's just collapse all of the hides into 5 types. So I think now there is flexible, strong, durable, soft, and tough as the 5 hide types. And you may find flexible hides dropping from 2 different types of both cat and wolf, and tough drops from boar and something else. So basically, as we get more NPC types, you're going to see more of that happening. Now, that didn't map with the skill trees, so collapse the skill trees into the carnivore, herbivore, omnivore, because those are 3 categories that I'm pretty sure everybody understands. So raising skills in carnivore will let you harvest carnivores better. And then we can argue over whether a bear is a omnivore or a carnivore, or...
It's an omnivore.
It is an omnivore.
There's no argument.
Right. but everybody tends to have their own opinion on what things are. So, we now at least have 3 big buckets rather than 5 very specific buckets for the animal crafting. So, yes, that was, again, part of making it just more understandable for everybody. Added Farsight stat to archery items to enable them to see nameplates further. I thought I did that already in 5.3, actually.
I thought you did, but I don't know.
Yeah, so all of the bow disciplines were... Basically, we had a bunch of arrow types, and nobody could access them.
Yeah.
And in fact, in the powers, they do all kinds of crazy things based on what arrow you have equipped, and nobody could equip them. So what we did is we created... We also didn't mention... Because I made 6 new quiver types to match those as well. Mm-hmm. So all of the arrow types have a quiver associated type with them now, as well as the ability to equip them based on taking specific disciplines. So if you want the fire and ice arrows, you have to take Arcane Archer.
And in fact, you could have a fire quiver for your Arcane Archer, correct?
Correct. That I did all that work, and then granted all of the proper equips. So
that's super sweet.
And excuse me, based on tech that we just got for the assassin to change the particle colors based on what you have, the effects guys are going to go through and make the arrows change their color and their particle effects based on which arrow you have.
Very nice.
So that's pretty cool that we now have that tech. We didn't have that before. The assassin is debuting it. Yeah, that it is really cool that it just we can just change the color of stuff and it looks really good as long as they made those. Because they also go through it and actually tweak them so it's not just a tint to make it look good. So yes, bows, and the reason that the basic bow was shooting further than the advanced bows is basically because the basic bow power was set to a further range, not anything to do with the crafting. It was actually a power problem. I fixed that bug. Okay, energetic harvest has been moved to the C slot. Mechanics are still the same. It's just in the C slot now. We're going to test it over there. Confessor Immolate, in addition to its existing effects, now also causes you to become invisible and teleport a short distance away with an improved animation. So what we always wanted it to do.
Finally.
Yes, we wanted it to do that from back in the Hunger Dome days, but we just didn't have the tech. And that one's kind of been hanging out there for 2 years now, waiting for the tech to show up.
Yep.
And
it's like, hey, we could. Blair's like, hey, why don't we do that? I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that.
Why don't we finally do the thing we wanted to do with it now that we have the tech?
So we did it.
Updated the Immolate description. Confessor's 3rd basic attack is now called Fireball and hits once. That means every cycle of 3, you get 3 charges of sin rather than 5 charges of sin. Okay, Druid, we already mentioned. Duelist. Duelist Vanish will no longer leave you permanently snared forever. Good fix.
Yeah.
Knight. Retimed and tuned a number of Knight powers to more closely match their animations. Yeah, so when we put in a note like that, it's basically the animators went through and made an animation look cooler, or they wanted to change it. We have to go through on the design side and make sure the damage numbers now reflect based on the new animation.
Right, and the secondary purpose for doing this too, aside from, I mean, obviously the animations actually, the animators made some improvements to animations actually quite a while ago, and just haven't rolled back to making them match better, but part of this has to do with like input queuing, right? Because we want this to basically, it's important that you know when you hit, and that you hit when you look like you hit.
Right.
And so, more or less, I did a pass to go through all the abilities and make sure you hit when you actually look like you hit, and so you'll know that I can hit the button when I hit, and I'll do my next ability.
Yep. Okay. Myrmidon. Taste for Blood now procs Blood Craze, which correctly reduces Berserk crash damage if active when a Myrmidon crashes. Yeah, so there's a little buff icon that goes up there for Taste for Blood when you equip it, and then when it procs, Blood Craze now goes up there, so you know, yes, you're in a state where you're going to get reduced. Taste for Blood also procs Bloodthirst, which increases basic attack damage. The proc condition for Bloodthirst now correctly requires hitting a bleeding target, in addition to its % chance for proc. Yeah, before it was just the proc was just 100%.
Yeah, it's just like
It now actually requires you to hit a bleeding target and not just any target, which is what Hit It has always said. It just wasn't following those rules. Retime some Myrmidon attack blackouts to match their animations. Switch Myrmidon cast net to use a power blackout. Switch Myrmidon net pull to use a power blackout.
Yeah, basically means you can
move. Basically, right? It means you can move.
Probably change that note to say move rather than the more cryptic.
Yeah, power blackout is an internal term for us. Reduce the cost of Myrmidon Whirlwind. Berserk, update damage coefficient per point of health to match the new health scale. The stat continues to cap at 20%.
Yeah.
So what did that mean?
Well, that means you'll do a little more damage when you Berserk now, because before...
it was looking for the times 10 health values. Yeah, so it was looking for you to do 2,000 points of damage before raising you something.
Right.
Where,
as opposed to 200.
As opposed to 200. Can a human use Demon Pact to get 5 passives? That, however, is valid because we did talk about Demon Pact. They, in fact, cannot, because the max that you are allowed to get on passives is +1. So if they use it, it will take up a minor discipline slot, and they will get nothing.
Well, they get the stats on that. Actually, minors don't actually have stats.
The minors do not have stats.
You get exactly nothing.
You get a Willy Wonka pop-up face that says you lose.
You get nothing.
You get nothing. Good day, sir. So, do not equip that unless you want to just eat up a discipline slot. And, in fact, in the future, when discipline slots are filled with very valuable disciplines that don't just cost an ore to make, that would be a foolish waste of a discipline. And, what is your favorite feature looking forward? Well, my favorite feature out of this is probably the input buffering, because it helps the feel a lot.
Yeah. It makes things feel... I mean, you got to experience to try it. It just feels better, right?
Yeah.
It feels like you would probably, I hope, expect it to feel.
And in fact, if you don't feel anything, that's great, because it means that it's not causing problems. Generally, when things are working right, that it's one of those things, you know what I mean?
It's like it's one of the million little things, and like I said, it is actually the action game's secret sauce, but it is a secret. Like you don't notice it when it's there. Things just feel right. When it's missing, you're like, I don't know why, but this doesn't feel right like I expect it to. And
you just may compensate for it and not think that it feels janky. You're like, oh, okay.
Right. If you're used to
the way it exists.
If you're used to spamming, then well, I mean, it should still feel better, because I mean, it'll just work.
Yep.
It'll still work. So.
Umix asks, how is the Assassin? The Assassin is fantastic, and we look forward to releasing the Assassin.
Mm-hmm. The Assassin is ready for action.
It's ready for action. And you've done your final polish pass on numbers?
Yeah. It should be rolling.
Which generally means that is the final little bow tie on the box. I think Gibson is going to start taking footage. If he could be bothered to over there.
He's too busy.
He's too busy playing on his phone. Yeah. Based on what you said today, because people don't like to craft armor or weapons, can't craft high-end gear, any news on where vendors are in development? Excuse me. The lack of breakfast has left me with a dry throat. Yes, vendors are on the hit list for a feature coming in either January or February. That way, as you're crafting, you can start loading up the vendors with the stuff, and people can just come
buy it.
Just come buy it from you. So that one is on the soon list. We know we needed it. It's just we ran out of time for all the stuff that we were building. Are the armor hit point values flat, or are they percentage based?
Yeah, so they'd be flat.
They are flats, and we're dealing with a scale right now of, I think the knight had 6250 base plus his constitution bonus, which hopefully will also get fixed somewhat soon. but we're going to be removing some of that base, and that budget goes into the armor. Does the basic, intermediate, advanced crafting added recipes address crafting currency? So to answer Onrez's question, we have not made a pass yet on putting ethereal energy as a fuel for every recipe. That is coming in the future, but it is a thing that we've always intended to do. You will notice that the blacksmithing recipes and the leatherworking essentially require their own forms of fuel in this. Blacksmithing requires coal, and so to scale, or basically, scale and plate are both under blacksmithing, and they both require coal. You make coal with wood and fire? Fire, burn! I think you need to do it at a campfire. And the leatherworking requires lacing sinew, which requires 2 animal meat to turn it into sinew. Does the power to equip toxic work with bows, since Master of Bows is equipable for assassin, and can a poison arrow quiver then be crafted?
So not a. I don't think we have poison arrow quivers yet, do we?
So
you should be able to proc.
Since they were a damage type, I went ahead and made them, but I didn't grant anybody the ability to equip poison or disease.
Okay.
So there is no
kind of back pocket.
Yeah, it's basically we need to come up thematically with an archery discipline that matches that, or maybe poisoner, maybe poisoner might be a thing we add to poisoner. That's a good.
From the assassin perspective, though, right now, as of right now, there's nothing like if you equip a bow and a poison toxin or whatever, any kind of toxin, they will proc off your bows. Because we're not saying to not do that. So
they will no longer proc off unarmed.
They will not proc off unarmed,
as they were doing prior to this morning. So we already got that fixed. Does jewel crafting, alchemy, rune crafting work with intermediate table, or is it just basic equipment improvement? So, jewel crafting, alchemy, and rune crafting are all considered advanced crafting professions. There are no intermediate recipes for those. Same with necromancy. You actually need an advanced table, and you need to have the basic box in that skill tree trained to see those recipes. There are no intermediate versions of those. Intermediates right now only exist for weapons. Weapons are the only thing that got the 3 levels of thing. Yeah, we didn't go through and say, okay, now we need basic and intermediate rings. We need basic and no, we didn't do that. It's just weapons. So, crafting tables were mentioned. Are those for EK only, or are they placeable in the campaign world? Because the campaign we are playing right now, and for the immediate future will be 3 faction, we are going to go ahead and place them. Valerie already placed the intermediates in the beachheads, as well as putting the advanced in the forts and keeps. Okay, so how do you plan to differentiate mitigation values with the new tiered armor system? So we talked about that, so go for it.
What's the question? How are we going to differentiate blah, blah, blah? How do you differentiate different mitigation values with the new... so I mean, it's basically a progression, right? So leather's going to have the lowest mitigation values, and plate's going to have the highest. When you're crafting the armor, you can basically select different layers, right? So I mean, you'll be able to select general layer, which is going to give you general protections across the board, or you can select a specialized layer that's going to give you either physical, elemental, or organic protections, right? So you basically pretty straightforward, what you're used to already, right? So you can either have general armor that's good across the board against everything, or you can specialize, and shift a little more towards physical, elemental, or organic.
Right. So if a piece of leather armor requires 3 hardened leather squares, which it does, each of those hardened leather squares right now has 3 optional components of the layers. And the layers, each of them seems to boost it a small way, but at the end of the day, it does add a chunk of mitigation to that armor if you want to do that. The layers are optional, and currently they're granted at crafting or blacksmithing, or I'm sorry, this is leatherworking. So for leatherworking, the leather layers are granted at leatherworking basics. I'm going to move the layers for both blacksmithing and leatherworking deeper into the tree because it's more of an advanced style of gameplay thing. And again, we're hooking up the game now. The crafting, we haven't really, this isn't a full pass crafting 2.0 kind of thing. This is just a little bump in the right direction. We're putting in the stations, and we are putting in, again, touching recipes. The update we put out last week, I think we put an update last week on crafting. Yes, that stuff is not all coming in 5.4. So we won't be able to create, yes, so advanced harvesting tools till we get advanced skills and have a table. Yes, there is a progression now. Basically, everything has a progression that is, you have to train in those skills or you have to talk to a crafter. So I'm certain some crafter is going to go to rune crafting right off the bat, and then they're going to start loading up their vendor with advanced tools because that's where they want to spend their skill points.
Yeah.
So you're going to need to go to their vendor and buy those tools, or you're going to need to invest the skill training time to get to those recipes. I mean, that's
right. That's dependency, right? I mean, that's part of the
part
of the design. Right?
That's how rune crafters who go that route will make the best tools, and they will make a profit if they have tools that do. Probably, I think crit amount is the most popular, and crit chance are the most popular stats. So again, if they train all the way to the end of the rune crafting tree, they will have the most experimentation points, meaning their tools will be far superior than like heads and tails above the basics, and even better than someone who just gets the first box, because they'll have 10 experimentation or 12 experimentation points to put into those tools. So a pick will have 60 or 70 mining on it, in addition to critical amount and critical chance. So yeah, that's all part of making the game. Okay, so Crowfall, you said that your mitigations are only based on the chest piece now, right? What does that mean for mitigation adjectives for the head, hands, and feet? So this weekend I went in and I replaced all of the items that would give you mitigation values in the head, hands, and feet. They don't do that anymore. So a piece of plate requires 3 metal sheets. The head, hands, and feet now require 2 metal plates. So it's a completely different object that you craft. There are new subcomponent recipes for metal plates. The chain armor got metal rings, which is the one with armor mitigation values, and they have metal scales for the 3 pieces that don't get them. Leather got hardened leather squares, and leather squares do not have mitigation values on them. They still have the other attack power, the full range of stats, crafting, harvesting, as well as combat stats, so you can still customize that way. They just no longer have the mitigation values.
But they do grant health.
But they do grant health from the base template, and I think, yes, there is an additive in each of those. It's treated steel for the metal stuff, and it's treated leather for the leather stuff, and that can grant an additional health boost if you put those optional components in there.